Great. Sorry that always happens, but we are recording, as you can tell.
Oh, good. All righty. Welcome, everybody. I'm delighted that you have chosen to spend your lunchtime with us. I'm Jen Martin from the ASC and from Uni Melb, and we are graced today with the presence of El Presidente, Phil Dooley from the ASC. What did we do to deserve your presence, Phil? How cool are you?
It's because Tilly's so cool. I couldn't stay away.
Yeah, well, fair enough too.
I seem to think Tilly was the person who ejected me from the throne in New South Wales in about 2008. She staged a coup and became the New South Wales ASC president. And yeah.
So really you're here for some
retribution, yeah.
Revenge.
Yeah. I'm gonna.
Sorry, Tilly, I won't open it up to audience questions for a while, so Phil can't get too stuck into you too soon. I'm also thrilled that we are joined by Jenna Ong, who has been instrumental with me in creating this ASC Conversations series. We're intending to do it monthly. We love having a few or a lot of people join us for conversations with fabulous SciComm people. Before I go any further, I'd like to acknowledge that I am on the lands today of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people. I'm at the Parkville campus of the University of Melbourne, and I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past and present. And as I always do, acknowledge our First Nations people as our first scientists, our first researchers, our first storytellers. I feel so fortunate to live in a country where we have this unbelievably long history of extraordinary people doing wonderful things, and we get to follow in their footsteps. And finally, at least, we are beginning to acknowledge that First Nations knowledge in a slightly more meaningful way, which is very important. If anyone would like to share in the chat which land you are joining us from today, that would be very welcome. What we're here to do is to not in any way violate Tilly's brain by picking at it, but really just to get to know Tilly a little bit as one of my absolute uber favorite people in the science communication world. I've had the great pleasure of knowing Tilly for, I don't know how many years now, a few, but I met her through the ASC. And since then, we've had the great privilege of actually getting to legitimately work together. Like there are times that Tilly and I are being paid to hang out with each other, which is pretty remarkable and wonderful. But I think Tilly is just a fabulous example of somebody who has had a really interesting career trajectory. So she started off as a microbiologist, and we might ask her a bit more about that in a moment. But there's a quote somewhere I read of Tilly saying, she thought her future would be bossing around lab rats. And now she's the head of Curatorial at Science Gallery Melbourne. I'll ask her shortly what the hell that means. You may or may not know Science Gallery Melbourne. You may or may not know what a curator is. But then in between, there was all sorts of interesting things with the ABC and festivals. And hey, Jessica, welcome. We're just introducing Tilly. And I guess, Tilly, I just really would love these people who many of whom I know you already, but just to hear how did you get to where you are? What was some of the key steps along the way? What do you know now that you wish you knew then? What the head of Curatorial? But maybe we should start with your microbiology, because when you and I were having a chat once, I made the comment that I didn't really see a lot of microbiology around you anymore, and clearly you'd moved into another world, and you got really cross with me and said, microbiology is everywhere, it's my life, Jen. So Tilly, unmute yourself and please talk to us about you and your love of microbiology and what took you away from the lab.
Oh, I believe the first words that I said to you after that was, how dare you?
Yeah.
How very dare you? Microbiology is everywhere. I loved microbiology at uni, and I think that a really good teacher and a person who shifted the way that I thought about myself, who was teaching microbiology, meant that I went on a path for that to be my major. And I did my honours on the microevolution of Cryptococcus neoformans, variety neoformans, and its response to an antifungal agent, Epipteris B, was the title. Obviously I've gotten better at science communication since then, guys, because what a title, took up the whole page. And the answer was yes, it does microevolve. But anyway, so what took me away, I think, was the lab work, as in I really wanted to, I'm a massive extrovert, as you might have noticed, and I really wanted to talk about science and get out in the world more rather than this was back in the day when RNA extractions, you'd spend a whole day on it and then you'd wait a few days for the results and then to have nothing on a gel. I mean, I wasn't a very good scientist. I was a much better science gossip. That's, I think, the thing that meant that my path wasn't in the lab, but it was out, starting on community radio and then moving into ABC radio and then on and on.
So was community radio the gateway drug? Because I reckon you worked that out quite early. Like, it took me to the end of a PhD to work out that I didn't think I was a very good scientist, and actually I wanted to be talking about other people's science. Like, I think you worked it out quite early, and at a time when, like me, science communication wasn't nearly as visible, wasn't nearly as known, it wasn't recognised as a career path in nearly the same way. So can we get down into can we interrogate it a bit more? You've come out of honours. How did you take those first steps into community radio, and was that enough to then get you into the ABC? Like, let's pick that apart a little bit more.
Yeah, actually, the ASC was an incredibly important piece of the puzzle. So while I was still doing honours, I went and started volunteering at Discovery. What did it start as? Diffusion.
Discovery, and then
Discovery,
it went to Diffusion.
And then went to Diffusion. Yeah. So this is at 2SER 107.3, real radio all week. So that's still
still do the call sign. I love it.
In Sydney, yeah. So it's part of UTS, and that's sort of like but it's open to everyone to go and volunteer. And so I started volunteering and was surrounded by people who'd been doing it longer, like Chris Stewart, who's in the UK now, but lots of ASCers would know. And that was just such a lovely welcoming group where they taught me how to start to write for the ear rather than the eye, which was a really big shift in thinking about how to communicate on that medium. And it meant that each week I could just spend an hour or two doing my research and prep and then getting on and practicing reading. And I loved it so much that I started doing an afternoon show on 2SER. And again, this was stuff where it's volunteer, so it's only for a couple of hours a week, and funneling time and expertise into that. And from connecting with those delightful nerds, of which I count myself as well, they introduced me to the concept of the Australian Science Communicators. And it was starting to get involved and volunteer on the New South Wales committee, which is where I met Phil. And that at that point, I think I put my hand up to do events. And so we had this really small budget, but once a month we were inviting someone to a pub in Surrey Hills to talk about their job. And so that meant that that would have been in my early 20s. Yeah, early 20s. And that meant that each month I had to figure out who I might send an email to and say, hi, I'm Tilly Boleyn. I'm at the Australian Science Communicators. We'd love you to come to Surrey Hills. We can pay for your meal and 2 drinks. Will you come and talk to us for 40 minutes? And so just meant that I got access and was sort of bringing ABC journalists in for half an hour because it was just up the hill from them. All these people generally said, yes, I'll give you 40 minutes. And so I would be dealing with the pub and organising the promotion and doing all these things that is event management. And through that, I met people at the ABC Science. And so Frankie Lee and Abby Thomas, and they were looking for someone to come in and just do a little bit of event admin and support on a thing that they'd just started that year called the Ultimo Science Festival. And that was a collaboration that really came out of 4 individual glorious science nerds at 4 different institutions meeting at a pub. Sounds like the start of a joke. 4 science communicators walk into a pub. They walk out with a miniature community festival. And so they each committed to, in National Science Week, run 1 event each at the ABC, UTS, the TAFE in Ultimo, and the Powerhouse Museum. And so 4 people going, yeah, we can, within Science Week, on one weekend, do an event each on this weekend and co-promote it. And so they brought me in to do some admin on that and to run the event that they'd committed to. And then I ran that festival for the next 8 years. And that went from local government community grants to then I learnt how to apply for and get federal grants, state grants, all under the guidance of the incredible Frankie Lee, Abby Thomas, and others at the ABC and beyond. And started doing little segments on the ABC radio. I got to pick my favourite science stories that the team had written and then write up a script and then go in the TARDIS and have chats to local ABC presenters live all around the country. Funnest job ever. And organising the Ultimo Science Festival, all of this while still working at university, so still having another job supplementing, sort of doing half-half. And then, yeah, so if I look back now, I certainly didn't know what a curator was. That wasn't a path that I was trying to get to, but from putting my hand up and doing small bits of expanding my knowledge and going, that person's really interesting and they are skilled at something, I'm going to walk alongside them for a little bit and chat to them and see how I can help and learn and earn all within the same sphere. It sort of went from one thing to another of broadcasting, festival management while still broadcasting, television and radio production and presenting. And then because the Powerhouse was one of our big partners of the festival, and I'd been in touch with so many of them about pulling them out from behind the scenes as humans and as experts to connect to the public, to do behind the scenes tours, bringing people in to see parts of the collection that weren't currently on display. So I knew all of the curators and public programmers, and so they had advertised a job to do science education, and I went in and did science education for a little bit while still doing the festival work that, comes up once a year, isn't something that can sustain you the whole year. So did science education at the Powerhouse Museum, and then was approached by the two head curators in the sciences, who basically had to convince me, had said, oh, there's this job coming up as a curator in the science, health and medicine area, and we think you should apply. And I was like, oh, no, I haven't done a curatorship course. I don't know. I have never done history.
Did you know what a curator was, Tilly? Like when they said, here's this job called curator? Because I feel like some people, it's not uncommon to not really know what a curator is.
No.
Like we know what to curate is, but not what a museum curator is.
Yeah, and especially a science curator is such a different, because in my head I had a picture and a job description of what a fine art curator is, and so it's such a different. I mean, there's similarities, but there's a lot of differences as well. I'd seen them operate. I knew that they had an incredible knowledge of their area and that they were always looking out for who we are, what we're interested in, what ideas are on the rise or on the decline, what technology and materiality is being used to facilitate and move along discoveries, and that they research that sort of stuff, they write about it, and they collect objects that they can tell stories through and keep in perpetuity for humans in 100 years, 500 years, 2,000 years. I knew, and that all seemed a bit too important and knowledgeable for me. I was like, that's not me. I'm not smart enough for that. That's not what I've been trained in. And so these
lovely imposter syndrome.
Oh, totally. But these lovely humans had to sit me down and go, you have a different set of skills, yes, but you also understand and are inspired by and can translate science, health and medicine and research. You can read research, you can translate research, you can communicate. But they really did have to sort of guide me through because I said, I'll go off and study and then I'll come back and apply for something like this. And they were like, there isn't something to study. You need to come and you need to start doing the job, and you do it with gusto and enthusiasm and learn it as you go. And to their credit, the Powerhouse has done that with a number of people, because you sort of need to grow science curators. They don't pop out formed from any institution. They come from all different paths, and you need to grow them in-house, which they've done a great job of over the past 20 years or so.
Tilly, it strikes me as how cool that you've gone full circle, that you are the one asking people to come along for 40 minutes to talk about their career. And fast forward a little bit, and here we are saying, Tilly, can you please come and talk to us about your career? The only thing is I'm feeling terrible because I haven't offered you a drink, 2 drinks and a meal. Phil, can we rectify that, please? We need to get Tilly a drink or at least one drink and some food. But
what's your fax number? I'll fax one to you.
Just send a carrier pigeon over, it'll be fine. So Tilly, something, and I am going to hand to all of you for questions shortly, I promise. So think about whatever you'd like to ask Tilly, but I'm interested to know, and okay. So we're going to move on to Science Gallery in a moment, but just before we get there, how important was it that you actually had a qualification in science, do you think, to be doing all of these things? So you said, you were picking stories and you were reading them and you were doing your research, and because I feel like it's not uncommon to have people out there in the world who have identified science communication as something they really love and they'd really like to do, but they've actually never studied science. They do think science is cool. So could you have done all of those things if you actually didn't have training in science, do you think?
Oh, I don't know the answer to that question. The reason that I think I would have had too much imposter syndrome. Not that that's but I think for me, the practice, the learning, going through a science degree as a foundational knowledge, and then doing a small, only honours, but a research path of my own, and needing to learn a whole different set of skills of self-management, of analysing data, of bit of disappointment, all the things that come with a science degree and research, that's sort of what put me in good stead. But then, there are all kinds of journalists who are able to still do great science analysis because they come from a different background of being able to read. And I guess critical thinking is the thing that you definitely need from my perspective. Critical thinking is, if you want to go into science communication, you need to be able to read the data and at least be curious and be critical enough to be asking the right questions rather than speaking a press release.
100%.
So I don't think that's necessarily science specific. It's sort of intention and a grounding and a background in being able to analyse that, which I think could come from journalism, could come from engineering, could come from all kinds of things and come into science communication. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that 100% makes sense for sure. But I am still interested in, so obviously like a huge part of your story has been your ability to connect with people. And you said, as you said, to kind of walk beside them and learn from them and work out how you can earn doing the things that appealed to you. So I think your people skills are clearly important because they've brought opportunities to you that you might not have had otherwise. But I'm still intrigued as to somebody who started in microbiology, said, no, I don't think I'm a researcher, ended up kind of radio, TV, scripting, broadcasting, all that sort of stuff. That's still a really big jump, I think, to what you do now in terms of working as a curator, and they're quite, are they the same skill sets or different skill sets? So maybe I'll take you one step back. Tell us what you do now, please, Tilly. For those who don't know Science Gallery Melbourne, what is it and what do you do? And then I'd like you to think a bit about the skill sets that you have used as a science communicator in different roles.
Okay. So Science Gallery, for those of you who haven't visited, come on down. We are in Melbourne. So Science Gallery is a place at the University of Melbourne that is about transforming. It's about transforming people's perceptions of what is possible for themselves and also collaboration and research in the future. So we are at the University of Melbourne, but we're actually part of an international network of galleries that started in Dublin 15 years ago. And the aim was to create this porous membrane, see, microbiology coming through, porous membrane, so that it was a way, if you think of a university as an entire ecosystem, which it absolutely is, with all this knowledge and research and humans and connections, and so a way of connecting that to the outside world in a different, welcoming way, specifically targeted at young people. So 15 to 30 is who we're trying to bring in the building the most. Everyone else is welcome, but the gallery, we are trying to remove the barriers that have been in place, mostly in Western education, that separate the arts from the sciences. I know when I was going through high school, you know, my skill set was identified within the sciences, and I was pushed in that direction to make a choice. And if you've got this kind of intelligence and you think like this, then, you know, you should be doing science. And if you're creative and curious, and you should be doing arts type area. And so part of Science Gallery is trying to break those down and say there are, across all of the disciplines, engineering, sciences, arts, humans are driven by being creative and curious and problem solving and experimental, and we are going to come up with the best solutions to the greatest problems of our time by bringing people who have different experiences and think differently to challenges. So at Science Gallery, we create exhibitions and events that really target big, important topics of the time. And as the head of Curatorial, so as a curator, I co-curate really with advisory boards of both experienced people and of young people in figuring out what are the sort of topics that we want to tackle in the gallery. And then we put on a group show about that topic. And we're also kind of unlike other museums and galleries in that we're not a white box. We are trying, the works that make me the most excited are where I've brought people from different disciplines together to tackle something they're both passionate and interested in, to create an installation in gallery where our visitors can contribute to the work in some way. They can affect the work. And if that is contributing to university research and knowledge, is even better. One really easy to explain example, even recent times, is that for our disposable season, it was all about rethinking waste. And an artist came and Gaspar Bebe made a proposition of having a plinth with a beautiful large glass vessel that he would fill with his own urine, and then it would have a tap at the side, and he wanted to connect with an engine, like a scientist or an engineer who'd be able to say that the water that came out of that we'd put filters on it, and that the provocation could be, would you drink this water? You as a visitor could have a glass. And so I loved that, but it wasn't quite enough. It was more a transactional interaction and collaboration than a collaboration. And so what we did was got them together on a Zoom call with Professor Peter Scales here at the University of Melbourne. And Peter is a chemical engineer. And one thing about engineers, when you get them in the room, they want to show rather than tell, and they want to do something, and they want to make something. So Professor Scales was like, yeah, you keep on talking about how it's a valuable resource we're flushing. Why don't we show that it's valuable? And so together they made a glass shipping container filled with a battery that was powered by human urine. And so you as a visitor could come up, and we were giving out the little wee jars. And if you went away to a bathroom that was very close by, it wasn't direct in, gang, but if you took that away and you weed in it and you brought it back and contributed to the battery, you could plug your phone in, and your phone would get charged by the microbial fuel cells. Biology is everywhere. By the microbial fuel cells within that wee. And they did it all out of very basic scientific equipment in this beautiful formation that was stunning and attractive for people to come towards. And that is just a prime example, because one of my favorite types of science communication is connecting with people in one of two ways, humor or disgust. Both of them are incredible breakers of boundaries between whether someone's going to actually give a stuff about what it is that you're saying. If you can get in through their first barrier by making them laugh or go, ugh, those are, especially with the target audience we are aiming at, those are great jumpers of connection. So that's an example of the kind of gold standard work that we're trying to hit on. Not for every installation, but oh, there.
I just have to show the photo.
Yeah, there I am holding warm urine on the edge of Urinotron, which you can see behind. Yeah, I label this photo as my other duties as required. You know, on like a role description, it always says, and other duties as required. Turns out holding the Vice Chancellor's warm urine was my other duties as required. It's my own fault. It was my own fault. I plotted that residency with that scientist, that engineer, and that artist. So that's what we do at Science Gallery. And what skills? I mean, I think, and this will sound slightly trite, but I don't mean it to be, like a genuine curiosity about what other people are interested in. And I'm such a generalist. And I'm so fascinated by surrounding myself with people who are much cleverer than me in specific, they have a deep knowledge about something. And that to me is like catnip. So genuine curiosity about things that people are interested in. And so I used to be a curator of objects and knowledge and research at the Powerhouse. And here at Science Gallery, it's much more a curator of connections. So we don't have a collection. I'm not trying to add to anything. I'm not trying to build on a collection in any way or keep things. I'm looking to find people doing interesting things or trying to get across interesting ideas. And I'm trying to connect them with someone else that I think that they might gel with and make something different. Or at the very least, I'm trying to get them to connect to our visitors here in the gallery, their ideas, their intentions, their perspective. So what are the good skills? Yeah, so enthusiasm and curiosity. My extroversion certainly helps in lots of that. And my deep, deep nerdiness with spreadsheets doesn't go amiss. In being able to, because curation also involves a lot of admin. So those are, I don't read enough. I've gone straight to the negatives. It would be more, I'd love more reading and research time, because I think that also really helps you be a great communicator, is absorbing different ways that other people are writing, speaking, thinking, working. Which is another reason I love your other podcast, Jen. Let's Talk Psychom. Just some great
Thank
people.
you for the plug. Very nice plug there. Thank you. Only because you were one of the guests. That's what makes it good.
Stop it. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it does. Absolutely. It really does. And it's clear to me that core Tilly has been present throughout. She's just applied her incredible passion and curiosity in some exciting different ways, I think. So yeah, look, I've got a million questions I could ask Tilly because I'm such a fangirl, but I really want to open it up. So please put your hand up, unmute yourself. If you can't speak because of where you are, put a question in the chat and I will relay it to Tilly, but I really don't want to hog her because it would be very easy for me to do that. And Phil, if you need to bring out any, old stories just to embarrass the crap out of Tilly, because I know you guys have been mates forever. Gemma's excited about that idea. Please, feel free to take the floor, Phil. You are the president. You get some, some license here.
No.
Oh, he's very quiet.
I'm not going to be noisy because I know Tilly will just sneak up behind me and knock me off my throne again.
Yeah, I mean, the stories I've got on you, Phil. I've got all the receipts.
Yeah. The silly stories probably go the other way, actually. Tilly's always so sensible and so.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that's right. And I never drank too many wines at those ASC events that I was volunteer organising. Definitely not.
But I think the very fact that you two go way back is a really nice, not that this is all about being an ASC love-in by any means, but we are here because we're all part of the ASC or we care about the ASC or we have an interest in the ASC. And, this is indicative of the power of an organisation like the ASC to bring people together in really lovely, great positive ways, but also really important ways, because often I think we all feel like we're off in our own little worlds doing quite different things, and that we don't necessarily have a lot of colleagues doing the things that we're doing, and sometimes we feel a bit alone. And certainly for me, the ASC was a way of finding kind of my tribe. And Tilly, that's where I met you. I met you at an ASC conference.
Yeah, and I never would have even known about the jobs or the things that you could do if I hadn't rocked up to an ASC thing and been nervous, but then talked to one person and then they introduced me to another person, and like knowing that there were people who were doing science communication at the ABC was something that I learnt at an ASC event, and when I started to research who do we want to come and talk to us. Like I just saw people with different careers, and so I could even have the words to describe what thing might be interesting to do next. And another thing that it gives you, I think, and not necessarily ASC, but ASC or any networks, which is actually, so when I do talks with starting off PhD students, and I ask the question about hands up who likes to network, and no hands go up, of course, and I go, too bad. It's too bad. Get used to it. Because it's not about networking like, oh, have I got a deal for you? Oh, it's so great to meet you. And I totally acknowledge that as an extrovert, that even that stuff is easier for me, even though I found it horrible in my 20s. I was nervous about it. But networks, walking up to someone and being curious about what they do and starting that conversation where you're not looking for any outcomes, you're just curious at connecting to this person. For me, all of those jobs, I think I only every single job that I've gotten, it's because someone else has seen it advertised and gone, oh, I reckon Tilly would like that, and has sent the ad to me. Or someone else has, someone said, oh, we need someone to do X, Y, Z. And someone's gone, oh, I know someone who might be interested, and has recommended me. And that is networking, as in there were humans that I'd had short conversations with who then my circle of people who were like, oh, Tilly might be interested in that, got bigger and bigger, of people who will think of you or speak for you, not for you, but speak about you to someone else because they've met you and you said, oh, I'd quite like to get some experience in whatever. So for me, you got to, if you're worried about networking or it's something that you prefer not to do, you can make it small. You can give yourself smaller goals, like I'm going to go to this event and I'm going to talk to 2 people that I don't know. But it is such an incredible resource for yourself and resource for them, in that you'll know other people that you might go, someone will tell you about a job and you'll go, oh my God, Jenna would love that. I'm gonna send it to her straight away. So yeah, trying to reframe these as communities of practice, as people who are around you and want to support you and want to connect in ways, rather than it's a terrifying thing that you've got to go in and talk to people.
I think networking as a term has such a bad rap.
Yeah.
And as Phil's pointed out, it's not necessarily talking to people, it's listening. People love talking about themselves. All you need to do is be able to ask one good question. Tell me what you do. Tell me what's your favorite part of your job. You just have to be brave enough to ask one question. And most people will rabbit on and, talk your ears off because they love talking about themselves, right?
No, yeah. But you've also got to practice and be good at the 30 seconds about you, and be genuine about who you are, what you're interested in, like what you're passionate, what you do, and what you're actually passionate about or looking for. Or like one thing, I trained someone recently on it and got them like the starting they have started by saying to people, what have you been excited? What's the thing that excited you the most recently? Because when academics go straight in, like they go, well, you'll never believe. And they'll go straight into something that's happened in their lab or research, and it really opens them up. But yeah, practicing your 30 seconds about who you are also helps your cortisol levels, in that you know the first bit. You already know that you've learned the first bit about you. So, and then once you're 30 seconds in, everything's fine. They're too busy talking about what they're excited about, and you're in.
I think the interesting thing for me about joining ASC and running the branch was suddenly I had a reason to ring up people. You're not just ringing them up for no reason. You're just saying, hello, would you come and do something? And
Oh
that
my
gives
God.
you a bit more legitimacy. Thank you. And it was really surprising because most people go, oh, who, me? Oh yeah, sure, I'd love to. But you just end up, I ended up same as you, ringing journalists, ringing science, contracting companies and consultancies, and Wilson from the Cosmos magazine saying, hello, can we come and tour Cosmos? And he's like, sure, I'd love to. And it's like, okay, now I know the editor-in-chief of Cosmos. And it wasn't until 5-6 years later that I started writing freelance for them. But
oh my God, when I was doing community radio on a science-specific show and realized that I could get press passes to go to things, it was, I was like, what? And like, they give you free tickets. It blew my tiny mind. And I put in a request to interview Brian Cox or something, and they were like, sure. And I was like, what? This is 15, 20 years ago.
Was that when we invited him to lunch? We had the ASC lunch with him. That was pretty cool.
It's just, so yeah, I know. And, we could talk for hours about volunteer things. And I certainly always had to work as well as doing, so I sort of did small pockets of volunteering to get experience in doing things while still working full time. But
do you have volunteers working for you at the museum?
No, gallery, Phil.
Gallery.
Jesus Christ. No, we pay everyone. We do internships, but we only do them when it's students and they're getting credit points for it. So the only people that I make work for free are professors. So if people are already on the university payroll, then I am upfront and I say, I am presuming you are including this within your work. But if someone's a freelancer or one of my expert advisors and they are Indigenous or, running their own business, I pay them for their time to, do volunteers.
Woohoo! Good on you, Tilly. Questions for Tilly. What would people like to ask? Jenna, over to you.
Yeah, thanks. I am really curious about the sort of hot topics at the gallery at the moment, and whether you have a bit of a list of things for the coming few months and maybe even years. I'm guessing the topics really stack up, and I'm also curious about that discussion process with advisors as to how you arrive at topics for the different exhibitions.
Yeah, cool. Yes, we do plan years in advance because each of our shows are sort of 6-month chunks. And so I'm always working on at least sort of 3 to 4 shows at varying levels of intensity. So our next show is going to be called Distraction, and that's on everything that's keeping you from doing the thing, whatever the thing is. So that is going to be a glorious exploration into distraction and focus. Led by my co-curator, Bern Hall. And the one thing that we wrote on the whiteboard underneath it was, keep it light. So it is not going to be a depressing scroll. It will be joyful and have lots of participatory artworks. So that'll open in July this year and go till December. Then in next February, for the first half of the year, because we're part of a university, we generally open when the uni semesters are on. So the show at the first half of next year is called Emergence E. So that's about human and non-human adaptation to a rapidly changing world. So climate change and our responses inside our body, outside our body, in our cities is a big sub-theme. But as is, body adaptation, medical science advancing and making us able to adapt ourselves in different ways. That'll be a delight. And then in the second half of next year, we're actually doing a collaboration with Black Core, which is our First Nations run team within our department, led by Brooke Andrew. So we'll be doing an experimental happening in the gallery where we'll have 4 First Nations artists and researchers taking over the gallery, and it will really be a different experience, not an exhibition as you know it. that's all the ones that I can publicly say at the moment, but I will be doing an open call for the one that's in the start of 2027 soon. So yeah, the way that we get to themes is that I have 2 glorious committees of thinking humans that I can tap into their thoughts and ideas and intelligences. The first group is called Curious, and that's our group who are between 15 and 25. There's about 35 of them, and we meet them twice a year, Bern, my co-curator, and myself. And we are talking to them and doing workshops on what keeps you up at night, what are the greatest challenges that we have that we need to tackle, that, you know, are being left to you and your generation to sort out. Sorry, that's all my alarms for the next thing. And from that, we're doing you know, workshopping about what themes we're going to do. And for the last couple of years, the big ones that have come up and never left really are mental health. We had our opening show in this big building called Mental, but mental health really has a theme that runs through every show it's part of, as is sustainability and the impact of human-induced climate change. So yeah, we do lots of workshops and thinking, and actually that group of really engaged humans are also a touch point for lots of our artists who are developing works. If they ever want to sense check their work, then we send out and get Curious to come in and go through their work with them, and they are so astute and eloquent at giving feedback. And the other group is called the Leonardos, and they are experienced professionals from across the spectrum. So they are not just scientists and artists, although Jen Martin is one of them. They are from engineering, from media, from medicine, from research, from science journalists. Natasha Mitchell's one of them. And they are Nobel Prize winning Nobel laureates. Peter Doherty, he's in it. And we run the same sort of workshops, as in getting from them what are the big themes that they are seeing coming up. But those humans are also such an incredible support as being those people who are deeply connected and thinking within specific topics, so that we can also go to them to say, what are the gaps? Here's our plan for this show. Can you see gaps? Are there networks of people you're like, oh, you've got to talk to this person, you've got to look at this research. And then, to be honest, there's one more group which, because, and I know this is going to shock you, I'm not in the target age range of our audience. I'll keep it down, Jen. Didn't need that level of laughter. Unbelievable. No. So my co-curator, Bern, is, but we actually form a curatorial panel of 5 young people who make the decisions with us about what works get in. We do an international open call for every show. And then we have this robust discussion where I'm allowed one dated reference. And when we're having our robust discussions, I call it Thunderdome from the Mad Max 3 movie with Tina Turner, because it's the best. Anyway, well, it's maybe not the best Mad Max, but she's the best. So that's my one dated reference. And so that is us not only holding ourselves account to the fact that different perspectives and giving young people a voice, a large voice in what it is, decision making and the whole process of getting from theme to delivery, but it makes the shows and the themes that we tackle better, and it makes the process more robust and funner and funnier and more challenging. And yeah, it's a joy and a delight. Those meetings are the best.
Does anyone get the impression that Tilly likes her job?
Yeah.
Most of it. I mean, you know, there's still Themis, Jen. There's still Themis.
Yes, every job has crap admin, right? There's never going to be a job that doesn't have crap admin, no. I don't think. Good question from Phil in the chat. Yeah, are you surprised in those meetings? Are there a whole lot of unexpected things that come up in those meetings, or do you feel like it's more, I know what we're going to hear, but it's really important that we hear it from you?
No, yes, there are surprises, and I go in there often with seeds to put in and see which things take and grow and which things like get pushed to the side. And I'm always surprised by, well, not always, I'm often surprised by that. Something that doesn't surprise me is that, you know, that with other science galleries all around the globe, lots of the issues are global. So things that are worrying young people here are worrying young people in the UK, are worrying the young people in Monterrey in Mexico. So those similar themes, but also that actually our Sci Curious group is a lot more positive than often our Leonardo's meetings. And, you know, I think that the last couple of Leonardo's meetings, the topic of war comes up, and I'm like, there is no way I'm ever doing a show on war. And because one of the other things about Science Gallery is I want our visitors to walk out the door feeling lighter and feeling like there is actionable, creative, positive things that they can do, and that they as leaders, which they are and will continue to be, can do, rather than coming out feeling darker.
I'm very excited how you're going to manage that with the destruction theme.
You've got to come. It is going to be a joy. Oh, it's so good. I mean, when you think about all the wonderful things that distract us, you know, video games, love.
Sorry. Disruption or distraction?
No, distraction, as in getting distracted by things.
Oh, okay. I thought it was destruction. Wow, that's a very broad and quite dark topic.
That is quite a dark topic, although I'm putting it down, Jenna.
Destruction. I was gonna say, add it to your list, Tilly.
If we're destroying the patriarchy, great.
Yeah,
you know, there's all sorts of things we could destroy, and it would be a positive impact.
Fair point.
I do love the fact that your reflection on the Leonardo's meetings, that we've been talking about war, and we haven't even met since Trump came back, right? Like, imagine what it would be like now. All right, let's not go there.
Let's not go there.
More questions for Tilly. We've got less than 10 minutes to go. Who would like to ask Tilly something?
Sorry, don't dance.
Oh, I'm happy for you to dance, Tilly. I'd love you to dance. I can ask Tilly a million things, but I just don't want to hog her. I have a creativity
question too.
Go, Phil.
I mean, well, just because you talked about that division between creativity and how have you bridged that? How have you fostered creativity? What advice do you have to young scientists about how to take on that creativity thing?
Oh, I guess my advice would be that they're already doing it. I think that science and that it's science research and exploring other knowledges and developing knowledge systems is already an incredibly creative practice. And I guess going back to that thing where I want more time, and I feel like I grow and learn and develop more when I'm absorbing the things that other people, or reading and listening and watching creative things that other people do. That's where I get a boost of an idea, an inspiration, something I want to learn more about and lean harder into. Just being open and curious about the things that give you a rise, like give you a moment of joy. I'm trying to foster more joy in my life, both professionally and personally, and putting more
So are you
effort.
linking creativity and joy?
Yeah, definitely. In terms of being happy and joyful and content with what I'm doing professionally, creatively, I absolutely link that as a driver with joy and contentment and learning.
But have you done sort of specific, upskilling in creativity in some way? Did you look at it that way? Or is it more
I've
just
never thought about it like that.
Openness. I guess I haven't really either, but some people have a sort of deliberate practice of that, which I've never really.
No, I've got a deliberate spreadsheet
recently on how joy seems very vital to my creativity and also productivity. So it's great that you also see them as so linked, because just in the last few weeks, really, I've been really noticing like the difference. But when I'm in a joyful state, I'm just able to put out so much more and more energy. And I think your joy really shines through, and it's wonderful to see that sort of thriving.
I feel like there's a linking word there, which is play.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I was thinking, Phil. Like those of us who can say that part of our job is, is playing. Often there's creativity and joy and fulfillment and all of those other things that come together, for sure.
it's sort of related, but I would say like a real killer for like the joy and the creativity for me would be like anxiety and stress. Like when those feelings creep up on me, it's harder to access joy and it's harder to access creativity.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is why imposter syndrome can be such an issue, because imposter syndrome puts us in a place of feeling that anxiety and stress and feeling less than. And at that point, it becomes so much harder to bring forth creative, novel ideas because you've already shut them down in your own head before they even form. Or that's true for me anyway. I don't know about for anybody else.
Yeah, same. And the concentration on the pockets of joy and figuring out what brings me joy is actually in reaction to and like trying to manage anxiety and stress. So it is a Ouroboros snake eating its own tail, because I'm trying to focus on what are the things, which spreadsheets are in my joy list, by the way, everyone. What a weirdo, I know. So
do we have a volunteer role for you, Tilly?
So like making sure that I'm scheduling in chunks of joy in my day, whether it be admin, whether it be figuring out a project development with an artist and a scientist, like spotting them throughout my week and my months, and knowing my pockets of joy is how I am actively trying to manage my highs and lows.
And Tilly, is that a really kind of explicit active thing on your part? Like, are you looking in your calendar and scouring and thinking this week's not going to have enough joy, I need to change things up? Like, how does that work in practical terms?
Yes, it absolutely is about calendaring. It's more that I look in my week and go, oh, that looks like a dark hole. I'm going to need to pop some joy around that, honestly, and going, oh, okay, we're going to have to schedule some joy on Tuesday and exercise. I mean, I had to be a middle-aged woman, but here I am being a middle-aged woman. Exercise and strength building is also a joy. I'm funneling a lot of energy into making that a joy practice rather than a pain in the ass. So it is trying being very, and it's new, but I'm doing scheduling, like it's managing my mental health as well as my output and productivity. Because Jenna, I totally agree. When I have pockets of joy, I'm more productive and I'm less likely to feel.
Yeah, and I love that you're tackling it with exercise as well. I just listened to a great interview with Robert Sapolsky, and he was talking about how everyone, so he's a primatologist and author, very, very much a scientist, but very much struggles with depression and perhaps other like mood disorders. And he was saying meditation doesn't work for him for some reason. He tried it for like 30 seconds and wanted to scream. He said there's a lot more science about the value of exercise for mood disorders. And this feels so like true in my own life. But I feel like, most people go to meditation as a first port of call for any like stress or anxiety.
Yeah, I do not want greater access to my inner thoughts. I got to tell you, I just I want a different way of engaging and calming. Sorry, Jen, I cut you off.
No, I was going to say I'm 100% with both of you as a fellow middle-aged woman. Yeah, exercise is just non-negotiable. But Tilly, I'm looking at the time and, oh my gosh, I'd love to hang out with you for longer, but I know you have more things to do. So I will just say joy is everything, and the joy you have brought me, and I think everyone here today, by sharing so openly and candidly about the great bits, the hard bits, the journey to get there, the struggles, and yeah, being honest about managing mental health. It's just such a breath of fresh air. So I hope in return we have given you some joy, because I would very much like to do that. Thank you to Jenna, as always, for being my brilliant collaborator and partner in crime, and Camille, who is also part of our team, who couldn't be here today, and the brilliant Phil, who we just adore as our El Presidente. And thank you for being here, Phil. And thanks to all of you for coming today. Like, life's busy, right?
Yeah.
An hour on a Thursday, there's all sorts of other things you could have been doing. So thank you for coming. But yeah, just huge thanks to you, Tilly, because you're one of the busiest people I know, and you always say yes to these things.
Oh,
I'm very grateful.
To you, I love ASC and I love conversations. ASC Conversations, best way to spend an hour. It has been an absolute joy. Thank you for letting me prattle on. And if you're ever in Melbourne, or if you're in Melbourne already and you haven't been to Science Gallery, please come by and tell me you're coming by, and I'll come down and buy you a coffee. Like, thank you. Thanks for coming and listening, gang.
I'm in for that. And we've got
Except
another.
we owe you the coffee, Tilly, remember?
We've got another unstructured chat next week to welcome new members on Friday afternoon. So if you've got time, come and network.
Brilliant. All right, everybody, have a fabulous afternoon. Thank you again for joining us. Tilly, I owe you multiple drinks, multiple meals. We'll get there, but thank you. Go and jump into whatever your next meeting is.
Okay. Bye, lovelies.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, all.
And Kat's waving too.
Bye, Kat.
Hang on, I got to take off my blur so Kat can wave at you all. Because if
Hi,
you're
Kat.
in Melbourne, you need to come to our office too, because we're what, like, I don't know, maybe 600 meters from Tilly, maybe? I don't know. I'm not good at distance. She's just over there.
Never invited me to your office before.
Why?
Now I'm excited.
You've heard me prattle on enough, Kat. You don't need to come. Yeah. Bye.
Hey, everybody. Take it easy. Thanks, Phil.
Bye.
Thanks for letting us in. Bye. Thanks,
Bye.
Jenna.
Jen,
Now, don't go away, because I'm going to give you that frickin' password, so you are going to be able to do this.
Oh, good.
Time.
Yeah, do. Can you put it in writing? Like, can you send it to me in an email or a text message or a WhatsApp message rather than me writing it down? Is that possible?
Sure. What I'd like is for you to log in right now, so then we get the Slack. We get the, you need a code, so it spits a code out.
So what do you want me to do? Tell me.
And then I'll give the code back to you, and you can then log in, and then you won't need the code in the future.
When you say logging in and Slack, you mean logging into Zoom?
Yeah, log into Zoom. Sorry, the code notification goes on to Slack.
Okay.
So I do need to go, and I think if I leave, it just ends the recording, but the meeting will still stay, right? Apologies if
I will
anything-
WhatsApp you, Jen, if you have 5 minutes right now.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right.
Hey,
talk to you on
Jenna,
WhatsApp.
thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
So I am logged in on Zoom right now as me. What do I do?
I'll send you the ASC thing on
I
WhatsApp.
just have to assign a new host, and then that's
No,
all
we
good.
don't. We actually need to log out. We need to close this and get you to log in as Christian. Are you still there?
I don't think Christian's not there.
Okay. There we go. Christian is not there. All right. So I will WhatsApp you. I want you to log in as ASC on Zoom.
Okay.
Yep.
So we quit this.
Quit this.
You're going to send me something, and then I'm going to log back into Zoom, but as somebody different.
Correctamundo.
I wonder how Uni Melbourne will cope with me logging in as somebody else. Let's see.
Okay, so I'm going to have to obviously close this and log out.
Yep. See ya.
Bye.